It is therefore my great privilege to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa. In token thereof, I cause to be placed over your shoulders this visible symbol of our high regard for you, and I hand you this diploma. Mazel tov. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you this. Please give a warm welcome to this year's commencement speaker, Dr. Robert Kraft. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. That's not the reception I typically get when entering sports arenas in New York. But here among the Yeshiva University family, I feel like I'm coming home to my own mishpacha. I love Yeshiva. The leadership that President Richard Joel provides is exceptional. I also want to acknowledge how special it is to be with your board members and my good friends, Ziggy and Mark Wilf. I have a lot in common with Yeshiva. We have in common what I call the 4 F's that are the guiding principles of my life: family, faith, football, and philanthropy. Phonetically speaking, that is. So thank you for the privilege of having me here today. I can't tell you how much this means to me. My father, Harry Oliver Sholem, was the greatest man I have ever known. I believe he is smiling today, watching his son deliver this address at Yeshiva. Would be far more rewarding to him It would be far more meaningful to him than all of our Super Bowl successes combined. My father was a deeply religious man. I used to go to shul with him every Shabbat, and after services, we would study the Parsha together with Chumash and Rashi and even Onkelos. We would go home and have a traditional Shabbos lunch. We would go back to shul for Mincha and Maariv, and there we would study Pirkei Avot. My father was very tall and elegant, and as you can all see, I'm 0 for 2 on the genetic inheritance of that. But when he led services at Killeth Israel in Brookline, Mass., the place was always packed. Standing room only, 800 to 1,000 people were drawn to daven with him. I have spent the rest of my life trying to perpetuate his legacy and Shem Tov. I have tried to lead my personal and professional life according to the book of Pirkei Avot, which I constantly studied with my father. When he wasn't in shul, he ran a small business. He was a distributor of dry goods, towels, sheets, and women's clothing. I used to work with him after school, and even as a high school kid, I was confused by what I would see. Customers would come to him and say, "Harry, we can't pay now. We need more time." My dad would always say, "Yes, that's okay." I would ask, "Dad, why are you letting them get away without paying?" He would just smile and graciously say, "They need it more than we do." Now, that may not have been the best business decision, but money or the lack thereof was a fact of my childhood. The only thing my parents ever argued about was money. But my father had a lev tov, a compassionate heart. He left me with an enduring lesson. A life of Jewish values should create a mensch, somebody committed to the highest ethical standards. To him, this commitment was priceless and infinitely more important than material wealth. Today, many of you are graduating without a lot of material wealth. But I think. But what you have learned in your time at Yeshiva will prove to be invaluable over your lifetime. Now I challenge you to dream big. When I was a young man, I had a big dream, a chalom gadol. I dreamt one day of owning the New England Patriots. A number of factors made that dream wildly improbable. Number one, I didn't come from money. Number two, I had no connection to the world of professional sports or the people in it. And number three, some of the greatest NFL teams are never sold. The Bears, the Steelers, and the Giants have been in the same family for nearly 100 years. Yet, I used to sit in the stands at the old Foxborough Stadium with my sons on Sunday afternoon, and it struck me how the team was mismanaged. Sitting there in the stands, I would dream of what our family would do if we only had a chance to own the team. As I said, it was wildly improbable that we would get to own it, but not impossible. Our rabbis teach us, Ein davar omed lifnei haratzon. The power of will allows us to accomplish great things. And for our purposes now, I'll just share part of the story of pursuing my dream of buying the Patriots. The previous owner, part of the Budweiser family, wanted to move the team to St. Louis. I had to fly there with my eldest son, Jonathan, to meet with him in a final attempt to persuade him to sell the team to my family so I could keep the franchise in New England. Now, I've done a lot of business negotiations in my life, but I'll never forget that one. The market rate, realistically, was around $110 million. We were prepared to offer 115 or even 120 to 122 million to get it done. At that time, that would have been an extravagant price for any professional franchise, especially the lowly Patriots. They were the worst team in the league. In their previous 4 seasons, they had won only 14 games. That's an average of 3.5 wins each year. In their 34-year history, they hosted just one playoff game at home, which they lost. Earl Campbell and the Houston Oilers destroyed them. By the way, it's been suggested to me this could be the first and only time that the Hall of Fame running back Earl Campbell's name will be mentioned at Yeshiva. So the team was losing millions of dollars per year. The price we were prepared to pay was already way too high. But the owner rejected that price and came back with their counter. In 1994, they would only sell us the team for $172 million, more than 50 more than we were prepared to pay. I didn't think that was reasonable, and we didn't have that kind of money. They were asking for the highest price, not only in the NFL, but for any professional sports franchise in the world. It was outrageous. But ein davar omed lifnei haratzon. The power of will. I just had an instinct. There are things they don't teach you at Yeshiva Business School or any business school. Sometimes in life, you don't get a second chance. Something in me said yes to that meshuggah number. I trusted my gut, and we did the deal. We closed the deal on a Friday afternoon. The next morning was Shabbos. I went to shul to give thanks to the Lord for allowing me to live my dream. On that Shabbat, there was a strong snowstorm, and in spite of that fact, 6,000 fans lined up to buy season tickets to support the team. The positive energy they generated that day, and for the past 2 decades, have propelled the Patriots. In the 21 years since we bought the team, we've been privileged now to have 21 home playoff games, and we've won 18 and had the privilege of going to the Super Bowl 7 times. So I say to you, what is your chalom gadol? What is your big dream? Think big. Make it a wildly improbable dream that motivates you. one that wakes you up in the morning ready to attack your day, to persevere and persist until you accomplish it. Dream a big dream, a bold dream. Don't play conservatively between the 40-yard lines. Don't just play it safe. My mother, Sarah, of blessed memory, taught me Ein Ra B'li Tov. There's no bad that doesn't have some good attached to it. Keep coming back like the tide when it doesn't go your way. If you don't give up, you can make your dreams come true. Making improbable dreams happen is the story of our people. I'll never forget the first time I went to Israel on my honeymoon, even though I think I'm 35 now, that was in 1963. Israel was only 15 years old. My wife, Myra, and I were staying at the King David Hotel. I remember what I was feeling when I put on my tallis and tefillin in the hotel room. It struck me that for thousands of years, Jews were putting on tallis and tefillin and praying for return to Jerusalem. That was our big dream. And there I was with my new bride in the King David Hotel. We were so close, but yet we were so far away from the hotel. We could see it, but in 1963, you could not approach it. We could not touch it. From our hotel room, we could see the Jordanian soldiers holding their rifles, sitting in the notches up on the wall, not allowing us to approach. I'll never forget going back to Israel after the recapture of the Kotel in '67. I had goosebumps. I had tears in my eyes. It was such an emotional moment. I will never forget touching it, kissing it, praying at it, and thanking God for it. We come from a tradition that will not allow us to dream only about ourselves. So how do we take whatever assets each of us have, time, intellect, or material means, to help others? One of my father's favorite teachings was from the prophet Micah. He has told you, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you, only to do justice, to love goodness, and to walk humbly with your God. One of the most important things about owning the Patriots is it allows us to do tikkun olam, to do our own small part to fix the world. One example came last season after Ezra Schwartz was killed in Israel, which President Joel just mentioned. He was only 18, so young, so idealistic. He was learning in Israel during his gap year. He was a young man from Sharon, Mass., which is a neighboring town to Foxborough, and a big Patriot fan. He used to watch Patriot games from Israel while wearing his Gronkowski jersey and FaceTiming with his family back home. By the way, Gronk never had it so good. That week, as was mentioned, we held a moment of silence prior to the game to honor him, his life, and his loss. We wanted to put a name and a face to all of the victims of terrorism. There have been so many people, Jewish and non-Jewish, Patriot fans and non-Patriot fans, who have told me how moved they were by this gesture. To us, Ezra represented all the victims of terrorism, including the victims of ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and Hezbollah, whether in Israel, France, Syria, Iraq, or even here in the U.S. Each of us here can do our part to make the world better. My mother used to say, we must stand as tall as our ideals are high. How do we do that? What I personally do is when I go to Dunkin' Donuts to get my coffee, I like to pay for the coffee of the folks. Yeah, I'm not a Starbucks guy. I'm a Dunkin' Donuts guy. But I like to pay for the coffee of the other folks behind me in line. It typically costs me less than $10 and makes the other people feel good. But more importantly, it makes me feel so good. And random acts of kindness change the world one person at a time. That, for me, is part of Tikkun Olam. One of my father's favorite teachings was from Pirkei Avot, and Ben Zoma taught, Ezehu ha'ashir, who is rich? Hasameach b'chalko, the person who is happy with their portion. We all know this teaching, but what at the deepest level is it really saying? What do people want in life? They want to feel connected to something larger than themselves, where there is a pride in an important mission, where there is leadership, where people stay together through the hard times, where your life is not only about you, it's about your real contribution to this larger cause. That sense of being connected applies to great sport teams like the Patriots and the Minnesota Vikings. It applies to great universities like Yeshiva. It applies to the state of Israel, where so many sacrifice so much that the Jewish homeland can live and be a strong inspiration to the diaspora. If you want to be rich and you want to be happy with your portion, you have to get outside yourself and find the things that invest your life with meaning every day. Where do you find that sense of connection? To what teams will you give your blood, sweat, and tears? Because in so doing, you give your own life more meaning. So I leave you with these three questions. What are your big dreams? Your chalom gadol. What corner of the world will you make better? Your tikkun olam. And three, what team will you join? My father Harry, Olav Sholem, taught me a lesson from my Haftorah I chanted from the prophet Zechariah for my bar mitzvah. Lo b'chayil, lo b'choach, ki im bruchi, omar ad Hashem tzvaot. Not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, said the Lord of hosts. The best things we do, the businesses we build, the people we help, the championships we win, the tzedakah we give, the communities we strengthen are truly a gift from God. My father left me an ethical will. In that will, he told me something that I think about literally every day of my life. He said at the end of every day, as we lay our head on our pillow, we should ask ourselves a simple question. Are the people you touch today richer and better for having known you? Go forward from here, my friends, and make people's lives richer and better because they have known all of you. Thank you for the great privilege of speaking to you today. Mazel tov.